Hey guys, it's Maylani Hawk from Why Not Me Academy. I'm really excited about this two-part series that we did. We actually mixed it up a little bit and we did it as a live Q&A where we invited speakers from across the country to ask questions right directly to a speakers bureau and also an event planner to ask those questions that you might have as a speaker, how to get paid speaking on stage. And these are two amazing resources. The first one is Deia Starr Rank, and she actually is a speaker coordinator for Speaker Exchange Agency, which is a full service boutique speakers agency. She has over 16 years of experience in the industry and is amazing at getting people on stage, but also telling speakers what they need to be able to get paid on stage. So these are two amazing resources. We really hope you enjoy it. We're so grateful for their time. And yeah, if you have any questions about working with a speakers bureau or with a booking event planner, this is going to be super helpful. So definitely make sure you see both of the two-part series. Enjoy.
Thanks for your sweet introduction. I so appreciate it. And I started thinking, Maylani, like the last time you and I talked, boy, the world has turned upside down, right?
I know, right?
It's changed a little bit since we had our first conversation. But as Maylani and I were chatting, and Amy also, I know, on this call, so it's nice to virtually meet all the rest of you, and I'm excited to share with you just really anything I can, and that's really what I like to pride myself in, just being very transparent about what bureaus are, what they're not, what you can expect from them, what you shouldn't expect from them, all of those good, juicy details. So when Maylani and I were chatting, we ended up, I don't know, probably on the phone for over an hour, just kind of guiding our conversation from one thing to another. And she was awesome and put together a little bit more precise notes that maybe I can help you with. So it looks like as y'all were chatting in, it looks like some of you have worked with bureaus, at least had some experience, and some not at all. And so I'm going to start kind of at a 101 level, if that's okay. So no offense if you've had bureau experience before, but and really there's no right or wrong, right? Lots of bureaus out there. In fact, tons of bureaus out there, large bureaus, small bureaus, and we all operate just a little different. So what I share with you today is going to be from the perspective of how we function. We're a smaller boutique bureau. We're based out of Kansas City. We have you can look us up on speakerexchangeagency.com, the About Us section. We are the two principals of our company who own our company. They have been in the industry their entire careers, starting back in the days of 5-Star Speakers Bureau. I'm not sure if any of you have ever heard of that before. But then when they left 5-Star, they worked out their non-competes and finished those out, and then they decided to start Speaker Exchange Agency. And I think that was about, I don't know how long they've been in business now, probably about 7 years or so. I partnered up with them about 4.5, 5 years ago. And, my background is simple. I've spent all my career working with speakers in some fashion. Most of kind of the beginning of my career from the training standpoint, kind of handling more on the training side. And then when I joined Speaker Exchange as an independent contractor about, 5 years or so ago, I started working more on the sales side, on the keynote side. So I can talk with you a little bit about both sides of the business when it comes to training and keynoting, but mostly it sounds like, for those of you that are doing programs, a lot of you are doing more on that keynote side. So we'll focus there a little bit today.
Sounds good.
So yeah, really the best place to start, I think, is just kind of talking about what a bureau is and what it's not, and maybe the difference between a bureau and a management company.
Yeah.
We look at ourselves as, like I said, like a free agent bureau, meaning I can represent about anybody out on the circuit, meaning that when I'm working directly with one of my clients and they are looking for a speaker for their annual event, I can use my 20-some years of intel and really continuing. I don't want to sound like I know it all, because let me tell you, there's new speakers on the circuit all the time. So I feel like my job is a constant researching job, because I'm always looking for the newest and latest and greatest and that type of thing. So it's kind of a forever process. But what I find is with a bureau like I have, I can serve my client by offering them about any speaker that I feel like meets their specs. So in other words, I look at what I do from a bureau standpoint. Maybe a great analogy would be a realtor. And I think, Melania, I might have given you this example. If y'all were going to move to Chicago, let's say, and you had you're moving your family to Chicago, you might have a few specs that you're wanting. You probably have a price of a budget, right? You have a budget of what you can afford. You have maybe you're needing a 4-bedroom home and you want a walkout basement or a pool or close to schools or grocery or whatever your specs are. So you share those specs with a realtor, and then the realtor's job is to go out and find you 4 or 5 properties that meet those specs. You take a look at those properties, you give the thumbs up, the thumbs down, and we go on until we finally find you a home. And really in a nutshell, that's what I do for a client. So a client gives me their budget, they give me their specs of what they're trying to accomplish. Maybe they have a theme for their event. Maybe they have, specific, whatever their specific goals are that they're trying to accomplish. They share those with me. And then I use my intel of speakers that I'm aware of to present those prospects or those speakers. We do that in a proposal format. So the cool thing about a free agent bureau or a bureau world is that you can I have access to about any speaker out there. A management company, on the other hand, is a little different in that a management company is one that truly represents a handful, sometimes bigger, maybe 1, maybe 10, maybe 20. I don't really know of management companies that are, you don't get into the 50s or hundreds, but it's a small group of speakers that a management company then exclusively represents. So some management companies are, they'll do marketing for the speaker. Some don't. Some just handle all the bookings and do all the client relations. But the main difference between a management company and a bureau is really designed to have access to any speaker out there, and a management company they have their own little pool of speakers, and that's who they're pitching, and that's who they're working for. So I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. So my follow-up question to that is, as a speaker, and we kind of talked about this, as a speaker, how many bureaus, how many bureaus is okay, or how many bureaus is sleeping with the enemy kind of thing? I don't know how to say it, but yeah.
Yes, no, I get it. And so here's how I always like to look at this, is that sometimes a speaker, and again, these are a lot of my opinions here, guys, and I want to preface that it's not always right or wrong. It's just, so here's an opinion for you, is that as a speaker, you are truly always going to be your best marketer, in my opinion. You're going to be able to sell yourself from a speaking standpoint, or your services from a consultative standpoint, or consultation, whatever you do. You're going to be able to sell that far better than I can ever sell it. And so what I always say to a speaker is that you have to look at yourself as the primary marketing tool. You are the biscuit and I'm the gravy, right? I'm a Kansas girl, so or icing on the cake, right? You're the cupcake and I'm the icing. So you are really your very best marketer. And what I do is try to help get you out there from time to time. Sometimes I see speakers get irritated at a bureau because they'll be like, you know what, I signed up with Deia over at Speaker Exchange, which you don't sign up with me. I'll kind of tell you how all that works here in a second. But, I've been working with Deia over at Speaker Exchange, and she gave me 1 booking the entire year. That's it. I can't rely on her. They're not giving me enough work, yada, yada. And that's a perspective I would caution you to kind of reframe your thinking on that. And again, back to, you're really the true marketer. And what I am as a bureau is I'm truly a free marketing arm to you. And that's my perspective of how I see my relationship with the speakers that I work with. So I have lots and lots of clients out there, but you may not always be the right pick. You may not always be the right fit. And what my job is, and commitment to my client, is to not put a square peg in a round hole. So Melanie, let's just take you for example. You've got a cool story. And where I've got clients that I know you would be an excellent fit for, I also have another whole handful of clients that wouldn't even take a peek at you because it's just not the right fit, not because you're not a great speaker,
Right.
because you're not meeting the specs of what they're after. So my expectation to what my clients rely on me for is to bring them good picks. Anybody can go on the internet and Google for hours on end. They use my intel to go, okay, Dee, I gave you my specs, and I go back to that client and say, here are 5 people that I think are really going to nail it on the head. From there, it's a little bit of matchmaking, right? So the client will sometimes, maybe not like the picks that I have, but my job is to provide them with picks that I believe are really good ones. So back to a marketing standpoint, just to kind of circle fully around there, is that what you want to think about, in my opinion, I think a speaker should have multiple relationships with bureaus. I always think of it as, diversify your egg basket, right? You are the biggest egg in your basket from a marketing standpoint, but have other bureaus in your basket, right? Have ones that you like and trust and maybe can develop a relationship with. There are so many bureaus out there, and I wish I could give you some sound advice to go, check this one, and this one out. Really, to me, it's about a relationship, and you can reach out to bureaus and they don't talk to you at all. They'll send you through a online system. We actually have an online system if you go to our website for speaker submission information. But from Milani and Amy, both of you know, when I see something I like, I want to hop on the phone and get to know you, because I can sell you better when I know a little bit more about you.
Yeah.
And understand your style and all those kind of things. So I would highly recommend, to me, it's silly for a speaker not to be, a bureau. Let me back up. A bureau should be part of your marketing strategy. Bureaus, plural. So my recommendation as a speaker would be, yes, you guys know how to market yourselves. It's costly. It may mean getting on the phone and doing cold calls or lots of emails or networking, like Amy will teach you, like how are people connecting people. So how to do all of that. I would recommend creating a marketing path for bureaus. And maybe sometime this year you say, hey, you know what? My goal is to get 2 or 3 bureaus in my egg basket. I'm going to reach out and try to develop a relationship with the bureau and see if it's a good fit, see if we're a good match. And, you kind of figure that out. I mean, ultimately, right, you want to make sure you're paid. So, yeah. I mean, that's always a big one. I'd ask people, like, how do you pay? When do speakers pay? And we'll talk a little bit about fees and, the kind of the standard practices bureaus use. But I would strongly encourage you to find multiple bureaus, because really at the end of the day, think about what I do for you. I'm a free marketing arm until I bring you business. And then I say, here you go. Here's a piece of business. I'm going to write the contract for you. I'm going to do everything for you. I'm going to stand literally by your side and the client side from beginning to end. I don't leave the scenario. In fact, I look at myself as not so much from a control standpoint, but really just I am your insurance. If you go down or something happens, I'm responsible to that client to refulfill you, and vice versa. If the client's starting to act weird, or, we think something's going to go wonky in that direction, I'm the insurance to you to make sure that we can kind of keep things moving. So I would encourage you to have lots of eggs in your basket, in my opinion, and use us as free marketing arms. But yeah, don't be disappointed, frustrated, or irritated if you could have 2 years go by without getting a booking from a bureau. It's possible, but really there's no skin off your back, right? Because you're not paying a bureau. That's the thing to understand. With a management company, you are likely paying a management company a monthly fee. And then they are trying to do some of that marketing for you. With a bureau, you're not paying a bureau a dime unless I bring you business on a silver platter.
Yeah.
So does that help answer your question, Milani?
For sure. But is our basket ever too big? I know that when we talked, you were like, you don't want to have, like, I don't know, is there a limit? Like 20? I don't know, because is that...
I would say no. I don't feel like there is a limit. I guess really I'd put the question back on you, and it would be how many bureaus do you really want to stay in touch with? Because at the end of the day, I can tell you the speakers that I know, I book speakers I know, and I also, very honestly, I book speakers I don't know them at all.
Yeah.
Having said that, though, it's like any relationship in the world, is that when you have a relationship, and all of a sudden that client's giving me specs, I think, oh gosh, maybe Milani would be a great fit. Boom, I'm going to put her into that proposal. Or maybe Amy would be a great fit. Boom, I'm going to put her in that proposal. But it's only because we have a relationship and I know you.
Yeah.
And so that are out there. So I guess I put back on you a little bit, kind of to noodle in your brain is how much time do I want to spend trying to get to know bureaus, knowing I may or may not get a booking. It has to kind of be the right fit.
Yeah.
So the short answer is I don't think that there is a maximum amount that you would want in your egg basket. And I certainly don't think that there is a minimum. I would highly encourage anybody to get it's again, think of us as a free marketing arm.
Yeah, just like
so let's talk a little bit about I mean, I was going to say, and I don't know, Milana, you did such a nice job of like writing these notes out, and I'm going to make sure
I'll look through it. So don't worry, you just keep talking.
Cross off.
I will. Okay.
Cross off. So
let's go back to.
Let's just talk a little bit about how. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say.
Let me just lead into real fast. Hang on, we've got a delay here. Let me lead into real fast. How does a speaker, if you wanted to reach out to a bureau, how would you do that? And so I would say, here are a couple of tips of what I would do if I was in your shoes. I would first, I'd Google speakers bureaus. A ton of them are going to pop up. And ones that, I would look locally to where you're at, see if there's any local speakers bureaus that are popping up in your area. To me, that's sort of a win-win. You've got somebody in the local area. You might be able to actually, when we can all physically meet again, you might be able to go grab a coffee or a glass of wine and actually do a face-to-face connection, or be able to have just almost common ground because you're like in the same region or territory. So I'd first kind of look local. Is there anything local? If you Google speakers bureau, some of your larger speakers bureaus who have better IT departments, to be honest, and have your search engine optimization people are going to pop up first. Big companies like Big Speak or maybe Washington Speakers Bureau or Premier Speakers Bureau. Those type of bureaus are a little bit larger bureaus. And they will definitely, scope them out, check out their websites, look at how speakers submit materials. And so I'd search a little bit for that. If somebody came to me and said, hey, I'd like to connect with you guys, how do I do that? First I want to see your materials, and we do have a submission process, like I said, online, and there's a portal on our website that you can go to where you can submit the materials that we really need from you. And those materials are the following. We have to have a great video of you speaking, not just a, random in a church speaking or a, town hall interview kind of thing. Really, if you want to get into that keynote business where you're charging $5K and higher, you really want to think about investing in a great marketing video. And it takes a lot of money and it takes a lot of time, but I'll tell you, it's the tool of the trade. No matter how good you are, if I can't show you in a flashy kind of way, if you will, in a sizzle reel to a client, then you just look subpar. So I would tell you, make sure, so when you submit materials to us, our portal is going to ask you for your videos. It's going to ask you for high-res images, professional images, so that we can send those images out to our clients if we need to. It's going to ask you for your keynote titles and a brief description. So there's not a right or wrong here. Some speakers have one keynote title and that's all they have. And so we have one description. Others might have 5 or 6 keynotes that they present. So whatever that means to you, what we look for is the keynote title and then a brief description of that keynote. So when we get your bio, a headshot, and the video, those are really the main components of what we need to be able to put you into our system. So what that really means is I've got two areas I work from on my back end, a huge database of speakers that literally we have, I don't even know how many speakers, probably over 50,000 speakers in would be my guess. We work with speakers. Usually the cheapest speakers I book are around that 5K mark, sometimes a little less depending if it's a local event. And then, I've booked 6-figure speakers before. And so, we book anything from people you've never heard of to the Peyton Mannings or the political figures, or we've booked Michelle Obama, then we've booked other entertainment, corporate entertainment. Goldie Hawn or Jay Leno went out and did a gig for us once. So we really cover the span, really, from, again, 5K all the way up. So again, when you're looking at a bureau, those are really those main things: the bio, the high-res headshots, your keynote titles, and your sizzle reel are really the tools of the trade for a bureau to be able to market you. So if you don't have those things, those are, like I could make a few recommendations. It looked like we mostly had women on the call. Milani, do we have men in the call as well?
There were 5 that
Okay, so,
registered, but mostly women actually came. So,
okay. Well, and perfect, because we're a women-owned business. I love it. Well, we book lots and lots of men too. So, but what I'll tell you is there's a couple of websites, women, that I would recommend. You go look at their websites. They're very well done, and they have all the components of what a bureau is looking for. One would be Jen, JENBUCK, JenBuckSpeaks.com. And then also look at AnnGrady.com. That would be another one that if you just want to take some notes. Jen
I'll put them in the chat. But
yeah, put those in the chat for us. That'd be awesome. And again, those are really I'm just giving you samples of women. And for our male listeners, or if they come back to watch this, take a look at Kevin Brown. I think it's kevinbrown.com. Kevin's got a great website. So you're going to see with those 3 examples, just sort of that caliber or level of website that is attractive. They have the tools. You're going to see, oftentimes on a speaker website, you're going to see things like maybe a meeting planning tab. And under that meeting planning tab, they're going to have the sizzle reel, the video. They're going to have the bio. They're going to have high-res headshots. Oftentimes, they'll have AV requirements, which are super helpful for us because then we don't have to call the speaker to get AV requirements. So take a look at those websites. I want you to look at that with 2 things in mind. Don't really judge the speaker. It's not whether you like the speaker or not the speaker. I want you to look at those websites by looking at the quality of the production, let's call it, the quality of the website. Look at the specific tabs that they have. And most importantly, what you're going to find on all of these websites is you're going to find that you barely have to scroll, if at all, to see that video, to see that sizzle reel. So that would be just a strong recommendation if you are working on your websites right now, because right, a website's forever in process. Yeah. And always, it's a forever working project. And so as a bureau or a meeting planning type person, I don't want to have to do a million clicks or scrolls to find a speaker's video. So that would just be a quick behind the scenes tip. Show that video easy. If I have to scroll more than twice on my mouse, or if I have to click more than one button to find your video's too buried and people will, they don't want to see, they won't stick around.
Yeah.
So those items we just discussed, the video, the bio, headshots, and your keynote titles and descriptions, those are things that any bureau is going to need, as well as those are items that you're going to want on your website.
Perfect. Now, so when you were talking about you represent 50,000 speakers or whatever, as a speaker, how much is what is the chic way to be like, hey, I'm still here? You talked about, when we talked before, about, hey, I just wanted to send you footage of my latest speaking gig or something like that. But, we don't want to overpest you, but we want to stay top of mind. So what is your
Absolutely. And that's just it. I don't want to, I'm going to sound super rude here, and I don't mean it to come out this way, but I also like to be very transparent, is that if I was on your tickler file, like the first of every single month for the next 12 months, I'll probably lose my mind, because I will tell you, we do get a lot. Part of my job is to balance the client, but it's also to balance the speaker, because like I said, I kind of look at myself as sitting, on the middle of that fence. I've got to keep my flow and relationships of speakers going very well, but I also have to spend my time and attention sourcing and hustling. I'm a salesperson. I sell speakers. So I've got to spend that time hustling and working with my clients. So what I find most valuable is, if you go out to present, and maybe you're out to, I'm making this up, but let's say that you're out speaking for a manufacturing association. And you got a great testimonial from the president of the manufacturing association. You might just send me an email and say, hey, Deia, I just was out earlier this month with XYZ Manufacturing, and I got this great testimonial. And if you think it would be useful, this is the program I did for them, and this is who it helped. So what that does to my brain is it goes, oh, Milani just went out and spoke to a manufacturing. So what am I doing in my head? I'm going through all of my clients, go, oh, I work with this manufacturing client. Let me see, is Milani the type of speaker that they've worked with or booked in the past, then boom, I'm going to send that out. So it kind of gives me a reason.
Yeah.
When a speaker sends me something like that, it does two things. It accomplishes the goal you and I are trying to accomplish, which is, or the goal you're trying to accomplish, which you and I stay in touch, right?
Yeah.
But it also does another thing. It gives me a reason to reach out to my client, not just a, hey, how are things? You know, it gives me a reason. Hey, I want you to take a look at Milani. She just went out and did a program for XYZ, yada, yada. And I thought maybe her topic would be something valuable to your people. It gives me a purpose and a reason to reach out. So that would be one way to reach out to me as a bureau. You know, we do also, our bureau, again, every bureau is a little different on how they handle this, but we do speaker calls, and we do, you know, where we'll get our team on a phone call or a Zoom call, and we'll, you know, we'll just spend 15, 20 minutes letting the speaker talk a little bit, telling us what genres they spend a lot, you know, like what companies book them the most, what their topics are, a get to know you. It's like a coffee side, you know, a fireside chat, so that we can get to know you. And we do those calls. We try not to do them as much during our peak seasons, just because, again, we need to be on the phones hustling with our clients. But that's something that you can do. So I would just recommend, in my opinion, let's stay in touch, you know. And it's like, if you and I haven't had if we haven't connected it once a quarter, find a reason to connect with me. Okay. Because it's that idea of not driving me crazy, to be honest, but also that small little thing, you know, of just reaching out and staying in front. Some other examples, sometimes a speaker will do things like they'll say, here's a great one, is that towards the end of the year, or the end of a fiscal year, sometimes we'll have speakers, usually like October, November, that will send an email to our bureau, and they just say, hey, listen, and this will kind of nicely transition us into talking about fees and bureau fees and all of that stuff. But they'll say, listen, if you can get me any more bookings before the end of the fiscal year, before December 30th, 2020, and let's fast forward, like we're talking in the fall right now.
Yeah.
They might say, hey, listen, normally we'd pay you 25% commission on a booking, but if you can get me any gigs between now and December, within 2 months on this year's booking, I'll pay you 40% commission.
Okay.
Well, by golly, you better believe when I see something like that, I'm like, oh my gosh, I've got to, you know, like, you're at the top of my mind. Again, I don't want to put a square peg in a round hole, but I also am going, gosh, I could make 40% commission if I book Milani right now in the next 2 months, you know. So those little incentives like that are sometimes fun and a way to stay in front.
Things happen a lot.
Do quick booking? They sometimes do. Again, it's it's kind of like the stars have to align, but you know, it's interesting. Again, our conversation when you and I had it I feel is pretty different to what I'm seeing right now with the world of what's happening. So we are seeing right now clients booking really, really late right now because they're hesitant to, they're holding off as long as possible right now. And so again, I want to try to keep this conversation not COVID-19 stuff, because right now the world is really weird in our industry. Yeah. But hopefully give your people here just a big, when the world is normal, what things look like. So let's talk a little bit about bureaus and what we do and how we get paid. And we are I'm 100% commission. And so we are also members of ISAB, which is International Association of Speakers Bureaus. So I can tell you from being a part of that association, which those are speakers bureaus, big and small, all over the United States, Canada, Australia, Europe, all over the world, are part of this association. So I get a lot of my bigger knowledge about how associations are functioning from ISAB members. And so the standard in the industry when you're working with the bureau, standard is a 25% commission. If the fees of around, and let's just call it that, 25% commission overall is a pretty standard rate for a bureau charging. So in other words, if you're a $10,000 speaker, I book you, then I bill 25%. I take 25% out of that honorarium for the speaking or for the bureau fee. With our company, with Speaker Exchange, if the fee is under $10,000, then we generally charge 30%. Not always, but that's kind of our standard of what we try to do. And then if the fee's over 10,000, then 25%. I will tell you, like, some of just, you know, as a fun fact, if you want to hear about it, but like your speakers that get into big numbers, 6-figure speakers, your Gary V's of the world, or like now you can't book Rachel Hollis, but your Rachel Hollis's and Brene Brown's of all, when we were able to, because you can't book them right now.
Yeah.
But they sometimes you get into smaller percentages when those fees get really high. So you might look at more of a 10% commission. So but for the sake of this conversation and the audience that we have here today, then I would say just kind of in your mind, think about you're paying a bureau 25% commission. And I'm going to talk a little bit about, let's talk a little bit about fees, because I get speakers asking me all the time, like, should I increase my fee? Should I decrease my fee? And again, let's take COVID out of this picture right now. I always, when a speaker asks me, like my website looks great, I've updated all my videos and materials, everything just looks rock star solid, I think I'm going to go from 10,000 to 15 or to 17.5. And speaking of that, you usually see normal looking fees are like 5,000, 7,500, 10,000, 12.5, 15, 17.5, 20, 25. Those are kind of standard numbers. If I see a speaker who charges 11,300, that looks like a really weird number. And so on fees, what bureaus are using, like that 5,000 and 75, somewhere in that, and then 10,000, 12.5, rounded numbers, but those are numbers we see, and clients are used to seeing those numbers. But sometimes a speaker will say to me, should I increase my fee? My stuff looks great and I'm good. I'm really good at what I do. So should I increase my fee? And I always ask the question back. The question back is, are you getting as much business as you want? And if the answer to that question is no, then my answer is no, don't raise your fee, right? Don't be raising your fee if you're not current, even though you think you're great, even though you think you've got all your materials way up to par. If you're not currently as busy as you want to be, this would to me seem like a silly time to raise your fee. On the flip side of that, if you're going crazy with too much business and home life balance is not great, then definitely increase your fee. I've got a speaker, that Kevin Brown gentleman that I just mentioned to you, he's an amazing speaker. And, the guy's out on the road a lot. And so he has, over the last, 3 years, and he still is staying that busy. So I anticipate for 2021, we're going to see another fee jump for him. So, that would be, I hope that's helpful in just trying to decide, am I priced right? What do I have? Do I need to increase? Speakers, the cool thing about fees is you're in business for yourself, right? So you can change your fee anytime you want. I mean, it's not unlikely for speakers to raise their fee every year. Sometimes I'll have speakers who twice a year, they might do a bump. It's unusual that like every other month you're changing a fee. That would look weird and seem weird. But the cool thing is, if you set your fee at 5,000 for 2020 and you're crazy busy and you need more time at home, then maybe for 2021, you give notice that, my fee's now jumping up to 75 or it's jumping up to 10. So just know that you're in the driving seat of your fee. That's the most important thing.
Tell this
when you set your
Rachel
fee.
Hollis, because I love that story so much. About how Rachel.
For sure. So, yeah. So we started, I'm not totally sure on the year. It's been about 4 years ago, roughly. And it was actually about this time of year, during the springtime. And we had booked Rachel for an MLM, a multi-level marketing company, a very well-known one. And during that time, we booked her for $14,000. I think her fee was 15, but the client came in a little low, so we ended up closing the deal at 14K. And this would have been like, maybe we booked the event probably in winter time, because it was before Girl Wash Your Face came out. So if you're not, most of you are probably familiar with Rachel Hollis, but she dropped a book about roughly 4 years ago in the springtime called Girl Wash Your Face, and it changed her life. Before that, if you don't know her beginnings, she kind of gained her face. She was a social media influencer, and she took a picture of her post-baby stomach in a bikini and posted it on her social channels. And it just got a lot of leverage from primarily women, but her followings just started to go crazy. And so her social influencing is kind of where she's had her startings, and then became a speaker, and then wrote the book, Girl Wash Your Face. When the book hit, I'll never forget it because I was actually teaching a fitness class, and funny enough, it was like week after week while I'm out teaching this dumb boot camp class. Dave Hollis, who still is, was at that point in time her manager as well. And so that spring after Girl Wash Her Face, we get an email from Dave Hollis that says her fees bumped to like 20K. Okay. So within about a 4 to 7 day business period, we get another email from Dave that says, oh, now and this is, mind you, after the book had dropped, and then things started going crazy for her. Her fee is now 25,000. Then it bumped to like 40K. Then it bumped to like 50K. So literally within about a 3-month time period, roughly, give or take, her fee went from, we booked her at 14,000 up to, I mean, she was in excess of 100K. And then we hit the point, and then give us a little more time. Then she eventually, a year or two later, dropped the other book, Girls Stop or what is it called? Girls Stop Apologizing, something like that.
Yeah.
And then, of course, now she has a Rise program. So you can't even book her now. She's nothing more. You have to go to a ticket. I'm sure you guys have seen her Rise events. Yeah. But like she literally within about a 3-month window went from a $14,000 fee to over 6 figures. Now I share that with you, Melania, only because she asked me to, because that's not what normally happens in the world. It's just, here's an example. Things can change, it's, you don't know when the stars are going to align for you.
Yeah.
So
yeah. No, I think that's,
there's the fun Rachel tip for you.
So, I love that. I love that story. I think it's awesome. Okay. So let's get into like net versus gross honorarium. And like how you can negotiate on the
absolutely. For sure. So I would highly recommend, and I know this, I hope I can clarify this very, very simply, but when I'm pitching rather to a client, I send them a proposal, and I usually don't put a ton of speakers in the proposal, but again, I'm using my brain to say, here are 4 or 5, 6, 7, maybe at the max, speakers that I really feel like hit the mark on what your specs and what you're after. Also, they hit the budget mark. When I send that proposal to a client, it shows the picture of the speaker, their fee, their availability, their topics, all of those juicy details on the marketing materials I was telling you that you need. But most importantly, it shows the fee. Not most importantly, one of the main pieces the clients are looking for is it shows your fee. And so let me talk to you in my language what a gross versus net fee would be. And let's just use 10,000 as a easy number to talk about. So if you need $10,000 in your pocket and you're working with me, I would call you a net speaker. So if you advertise your fee as 10,000, you advertise your fee to a bureau as 10,000, and you advertise your fee to a private client as 10,000, because you want 10,000 in your pocket at the end of the day, at the end of the gig, then that is what I would call a net speaker. I don't love working with net speakers, and here's why. I'll give you an example. A gross speaker would be, let's go back to that $10,000 example. Remember how much commission I told you that I typically take? 25%, right? So if you are a gross speaker, and your honorarium is 10,000, if you work with me as a bureau, that you're really only going to be putting in your pocket, 7,500, because I'm taking the 25% off of the 10, right? So a net speaker is, you want a certain amount in your pocket. Let's say you want the 10,000 in your pocket. So if you're a $10,000 net speaker, then I have to pitch you to the client at 12.5. If you're a $10,000 gross speaker, then I'm going to put up on that proposal that you're 10,000, and that if I close the deal, you're only going to pocket 7,500. Melanie, check my language there. Does that make sense to you, or can I clarify something right there?
Yeah, put in the chat box right now if you have any questions about that. But I think that that's really helpful. And then the travel also, right? I mean, that's a big part of it also. Not just your fees, but that.
Correct. So that's correct. So when it's very standard, when I pitch a speaker, in that proposal, I show your honorarium, and then travel is always on top of that. Clients are used to seeing a plus travel plus hotel. So for example, I love doing flat travel rates. 1,000 flat is pretty standard in the industry. Some speakers will do 2,000 flat. 2,000 always tells me that they're wanting first class. Some clients will pay it, some are like, heck no. So, it's not unusual for me to pitch a level. That's inclusive of everything, right? Except for hotel, and then plus hotel, and then the client pays that hotel. So back to the reason why I hate working with, I shouldn't say I hate, that's a terrible word. I would so rather not a speaker, I'd so rather not a speaker be a net speaker. Here's why. I'm gonna give you a real true life example. When I'm working with a client, while I'd love to think I am their only bureau they're working with, I will tell you that almost 10 times out of 10, I am not. No matter how hard I've worked on a relationship with a client, no matter how great of a relationship I've had, no matter how many home run score speakers I've given them, they are sourcing me, and they're probably sourcing 2 or 3 other bureaus. I have one client that sources 14 bureaus. He lets you know it. So I'm up against 14 other bureaus at one time for one event. It's silly. It doesn't make good sense in my opinion, but point being, clients use multiple bureaus to get ideas from. So if I am up against, which I typically am, up against another bureau, and we are working on an event as huge as the world seems and as big as the ocean seems, and how unlikely it might seem that myself and Big Speak are after the same client, we very well could be and regularly are. So if you are a $10,000 net speaker, I'm going to put you in that proposal at 12.5. Let's just say XYZ Bureau knows maybe they don't want to be as aggressive as 25% bureau, so they might put you in there at 12,000. And then another bureau is like, oh, screw it. I know there's other bureaus involved. I'm going to go in and lowball them. I'm going to put them in at 11,000. So look what that's done to the client. We all look like liars. That's what it looks like. And ultimately, you look like a liar too. Because what it looks like right now is, again, I can increase. We follow bureau regulations. We're not going to up that. I'm not going to charge 30% when normally we charge 25, or I'm not going to up it to 40% commission because I know the client has money. We just don't play ball like that. Some bureaus do. We do not. But I also, bureaus can lower their commission to try to grab that sale. So in this scenario, we're all pitching Milani to the same client. I'm booking her at 12.5. XYZ Bureau is booking her at 12, and XYZA is booking her at 11,000. So see how confusing that is to the client?
Yeah.
It's very, very confusing. On the flip side, if the speaker is a $10,000 gross speaker, we're all singing and humming to the same song. So I'm going to pitch Milani at 10K, XYZ pitches her at 10K, and XYZA pitches her at 10K. That way we all look like we're on the same page. So again, I hope that's helpful. Do put into your comments. I can, if I'm not, again, this is all in my brain and in my world, and I hope I'm explaining it right. But that is really a big one. If you begin working, and play the what if game with me. Let's say that you're $10,000 gross speaker, meaning that you've got a $2,500 cushion built into your fee. And you book private, you book direct to your own client, well, then guess what? That $2,500 goes into your own pocket. Or you've got negotiating power to let that come down a little bit. But I would encourage you to constantly keep whatever your price is, build that 25% bureau lead in there and sing to the same song. If you decide the following year to increase it or decrease your fee, again, make it a gross fee.
Yeah.
I got an understood in the comments. So
yeah. And so here's some questions we have coming in, because I know we want to try to let you go in about 10 minutes. And we kind of talked a little bit about the process. So we are getting a few that have asked, like you said at the beginning, it's not necessarily that it's not like as a speaker, you're like, oh, I signed with Deia today. Like, it's not like an agent that it's like, oh, I signed with Deia today.
Right.
These guys should just apply through the website. It tells you what to upload. Once you have an impressive enough real bio overview of what you talk about, just go straight to the site and upload it. Is that correct?
100%. And I would tell you, really take a look at your materials. And those examples I gave you earlier are really stellar, up to par examples. And so sometimes because I know we have a few newer people on here,
Yeah.
or people who have done a lot of speaking, but they don't really have, here's the thing in the keynoting world, those marketing materials become absolute key. When I'm booking with one of my clients, I'm rarely talking to the actual decision maker. Many times I'm talking to the gatekeeper, the meeting planner for a company. And so I can get super excited about Milani. I can talk about her story. I can talk about, who she is, what she talks about. I can get jazzed about you as a speaker, but then I have to hand those materials off to the meeting planner so that she can go into the boardroom with the committee. I don't typically get to go into that boardroom, for example. So those marketing materials that you have are absolutely critical. And I'd ask you to be very judgmental about yourself. If you don't feel like your website looks good, work on it. If you don't feel like your headshots are high res and great quality, or they look like you from 20 years ago or too photoshopped, be real, get real. Because I'll tell you what, when I put you in a proposal with 4 other speakers and your stuff doesn't look great, then you look subpar and I can't get that bite. So helpful or not, I hope the straight talk is good.
Super, super helpful. Okay, another question is, are there such things, well, 2 questions maybe. Are you familiar with Gig Salad, and are there niche bureaus that you should find your niche bureau?
So I am familiar with Gig Squad. I don't use it at all. I don't know many people that do. There could be some meeting planners out there, like on companies that are doing their own research, that will get led to that. Because I know, the only reason I know what it is I've researched speakers and eventually found it. I don't find it to be a helpful tool. If you're going to look at more of a bigger broadcasting system like that, I would encourage you to look at eSpeakers. That is a back-end tool. There is typically a fee associated for you, the speaker, but that is a fairly well-ran, up-to-date, reputable site that many bureaus use and many clients use, because they've got some nice search engines. You can search on there by topic, you can search on there by location, you can search on there by fee. So when a client's trying to do their own homework and research, I know they use eSpeakers a lot, so that might be something to go take a look at. Gig Squad, not a lot, but teach their own. If it's the right price and you feel like you're getting leverage off of it, go for it. Niche bureaus, there are a few niche bureaus out there. There are some bureaus that work or advertise primarily like with agriculture. Like if you go and Google agricultural bureaus, there's going to be a few pop up. There's aviation bureaus. So they basically are, booking flight attendants, the Scullies of the world, the flight attendants off the Hudson River, like more aviation. So there are niche bureaus out there. Really, the question would need to be to you, what's your topic? Are you niche? I mean, is your background and focus just in finance? Well, maybe if that's the case, then you might look for more of a niche bureau. But if you are in the soft skills genre of the world, maybe into leadership, management, communication, motivation, I don't know what your, topics is, customer service, I'm not sure what your top, but if you're in more generic.
Yeah, this one was health, wellness, and healing, I believe.
Less niche, more generic. Mm-hmm. There are healthcare bureaus out there. So, if you have a strong personal niche and expertise, that might be a really good idea. For me, I swim in the ocean. So I have got agricultural clients, I've got finance, I've got healthcare, I've got manufacturing, I've got, you name it, associations, I've got education, nonprofits, Fortune 500. I mean, so most bureaus are going to probably function, that are not niche specific, are going to function like me. And really what we're doing is we're just looking for clients and really knowing, I spend most of my focus finding the right speaker, not necessarily worried about who the client is. But I would definitely say if you have a strong expertise and a strong niche, that would maybe be a real smart angle to take.
Yeah, perfect. Okay, and you can have a niche.
What other questions are coming in?
So another question is, you talked about
absolutely.
With peak season, when is peak season?
So in a normal world, your fall and spring are large convention months. Now that's not to say we are slow. In fact, usually I don't know how, but usually my biggest month of the year is July, which doesn't fall in the typical International Association of Speakers bureaus normally will tell you that your fall and your spring are your larger convention months. So your winter and summer are generally slower. For me personally, that's never been the case. I find that summer, I don't know, I think it's the world telling me to not take my kids to the pool every day. I don't know what, but for the sake of like big generic conversation, usually it's fall and spring are your busier times of the year.
Okay. Now, we're going to wrap up. I've got one more big question. If there's any other questions, write them in the chat. But I like when we talked about, just real quick, give us the timeline of if we're working for you, how that works. You kind of mentioned it. You send it out to, you get a client that has a May 30th event, and you find all the specs, you find the specs they want, and what, if they're looking to laugh, are they looking to cry, are they looking for motivation, whatever. And then from there, tell us how the process looks, how we would communicate with you.
Right. And this is one of those, like, one client can be one way and one client can be the other way. So let me give you I call what I do hurry up and wait. Oftentimes that's my job. So when a client's ready to book, when they contact me or I happen to hit them at the right time, and yes, they're looking for speakers, I can tell you I act immediately like it was an emergency. So in other words, I'm trying to strike while the iron is hot. So if my client says to me, yes, we are looking for speakers for our February 2021 event, I immediately find out what those specs are, and boom, today, the second I hang up on that phone from that phone call or an email, I am putting together a proposal right here and right now. And if I'm doing my job well, I have one person on our back end, because remember, we're a little bit smaller bureau, but I have one of my teammates who will help reach out to check your availability for that February 21 date to make sure that you're available. Because I don't want to give my client an idea and then go, oh, sorry, Milani's not available after all. Oh, bummer. Like, that's a waste of my client's time and my own. So when I'm putting together a proposal, because and maybe you meet that proposal, then what I'm doing is either myself or one of my back end helper, she will reach out and say, hey, are you available on this date? Great, please place a hold on that date for Speaker Exchange Agency. There's no strings attached with that. That's basically just, you're reserving that date for me until my client makes a decision. So let's kind of talk about what that happens. I am acting very, very quickly to that client within usually the end of business the same day, if not for sure the next morning. I have a proposal into my client. That client might make a decision within 24 hours, and it could be 4 months or more before that client's making a decision. Some companies plan, I just finalized a booking for May of 2021 about a month ago. So I have some meeting planners who are working that far out. And then I've got some meeting planners that, it'll be, well, I'll give you a great example. I work with a large educational institution, and they hire commencement speakers. All of this hit, but they had a commencement in April for their spring commencement, and they still hadn't booked a speaker in February. Oh, wow. So we were that close in and still didn't have a speaker. So there's not a one size fits all. It's basically however the client is functioning. Sometimes it has to go through committee after committee after committee after committee, and can take weeks or months before I get an answer back on, do they like you or do they not like you? So I guess that to summarize that is, it's a wait and see game. And you can always contact me and say, hey, have you heard anything from the client? Am I on a short list? Do you know anything? Sometimes I know, and sometimes I don't know. Maybe I'm in a holding pattern as well. I've had speakers on hold for 6 months before. If something comes up and you can no longer keep that hold because you've got solid business coming in, then you just dash me a call or an email and you say, hey, Deia, I'm going to give you a 24-hour notice. That client either needs to book or release my date because I've got a firm offer coming in. That's how I like to function. That's how most bureaus function. And that's really all that means. And then that gives me a reason to reach out to my client and say, hey, listen, poop or get off the toilet, right? You've got to either book this date or Milani has to release it because she's got other business coming in.
Yeah.
Other clients can act very, very quickly. So there's not a one size that fits all on this. But I guess I would just ask you to always exercise the patience, because I have to exercise the patience, and I will do anything I can to keep you up to speed on what I do know. Sometimes I don't know. Sometimes I submit my proposal to a client and they just go radio silent for like 2 or 3 weeks. And you're like, hello, Like, did you get this?
Yeah.
Did you like anyone? Do you not like anyone? Some of them don't communicate until they have an answer. Some of them are really communicative, and we can keep working that list. So again, it's not a one size fits all, but as to you as a speaker, if I was to propose you, I would just ask you to exercise patience, because sometimes I'm at their mercy. Well, not sometimes, I'm always at the client's mercy also. And they don't necessarily make a decision overnight. Sometimes it can be quick. Sometimes it can take a really long time.
Yeah. Okay, let's see. Somebody said, I've noticed that offers to speak sometimes want you to pay a fee, maybe a speaking fee or a exhibiting fee. That seems to defeat the purpose to me, but they say you get exposure. However, these are paid events and you are helping make their event successful. What are your thoughts on this? And maybe that's just, I don't want to say a lower level, but once you're working with a pro, is it a little bit, you're done with paying to speak level?
Right. So I know whoever, thanks for that question. It's a good question. And I would tell you to explore, but explore with caution. So there are times where I go to a speaker that I know well, that I know will possibly work with me. I don't like to ask favors per se, but I like to collaborate with my brain and be smart with it. So a great example is I work with, it's basically, there's an association for everything, right? It's an association of associations in my state in Kansas. There's one in every state. So basically it's like all these associations, and it's the association of the association. So all sorts of different associations. They do not pay their speakers a dime. Not even travel. They don't pay anything. So they contacted me and wanted to know if I could get them a speaker. And I'm like, well, crap, I know how y'all work. I know you don't want to pay any kind of fee at all. But I also know that it was a smart investment for me to get a speak in front of a whole lot of associations, and those associations do have money. Now, they don't usually have a ton of money, but this particular speaker was local to the area. He's a great speaker. His fee was within an association fee range, which was under $7,500. And so I went to him and I said, hey, listen, I don't know if you want to do this or not, but I've got an opera. There's no money. You're not going to make anything. I'm not going to make anything. You know, but I think it could be smart exposure for you if you want to go spend a half a day and go and do this. You know, by the time you travel time and presentation time and whatnot. So there are times. So short answer, look to see what it is. I would never pay a fee for you to go speak. I know what those are. I'd be cautious of that unless the environment is one, like you've really analyzed the who's are going to be there. And if you really think of it as a great opportunity, then maybe, yeah, do pay the fee. Because I mean, think of it as a marketing investment. You know, are you going to spend, you know, $5,000 in the next 2 years with, you know, I don't know, direct marketing or hiring somebody to do some social media marketing for you? If that's the case, then some gig like this to spend a couple hundred in, but gives you exposure to CEO level people, then maybe it's worth your financial investment. I would not allow that to be, I wouldn't get caught up in too many of those if I were you. Like, I'd be selective, maybe pick 1 or 2 a year, go and see what it's like, and pick something that works for you. Like, do you have a family member in that area if you're going to travel that you could go make it, you know, kill 2 birds with 1 stone kind of a thought? Or is it within driving distance? Or, you know, how do you keep your costs low? That type of thing. So I wouldn't encourage you to spend a great deal of your time on those, but I wouldn't say explore it with caution for sure.
And it also depends on if you have a funnel that you're feeding people into, that you're going to be selling courses or coaching, then I can sometimes see the speaking things being worth it. But that you've definitely got to have your funnel in place that you're going to actually make some money from it. So, Deia, last question, any advice especially during coronavirus, any advice for these guys before we have you hop on?
I would tell you right now, the world, like anything, as you all know, every business is being affected right now, including the event business, including speakers, including everything. So I would encourage you right now is probably the best time to take that time to start investing and resetting your own marketing. Asking yourself, you know, is my website up to par? Do I need to be putting a little bit more time and energy into that? I mean, we all don't have a lot to do, not a lot of places to go right now. You know, even if you are doing a virtual here and there, we are doing a little bit of that. Not a lot of clients are booking virtuals. I don't know for sure. I'd love to be able to give you some wisdom. I feel like weekly things are changing literally on what clients are doing. I've got, you know, some clients that are attempting to do like a 1 or 2 day virtual that we're helping them with. But the thing I'll warn you about the virtuals, nobody wants to pay for them. Nobody wants to pay very much money for them. So we've got $20,000 speakers. So, and there's a few out there that are still getting paid a little bit more money, but certainly nothing like their regular honorarium. So I would take this time to reset and relook at your business. How much time, not everybody has the financial resources, and especially right now, but what can you be doing to beef up your marketing materials? Can you work your own website? A lot of speakers self-teach, right? Because they can't afford a web specialist, or they can't afford a videographer or things like that. There's some pretty clever things depending on your ability or how much time you want to put into that. I would say take the time right now to be really getting your materials up to par, and really making sure you've got great keynote titles, you've got great descriptions, and all of those things are things that will serve you later if you have good materials in place now.
Perfect. Perfect. And I just put in the chat box again, Deia, thank you so much for being on here. I just put your website, Speaker Exchange Agency, in the chat box. And when you guys are ready, when you have that reel, when you have those descriptions, definitely reach out to Speaker Exchange, reach out to Deia, and hopefully that will work. But stay tuned because we have Rachel coming on. But thank you so much, Deia.
You are welcome. It's been my pleasure. And I know we talked about a million things. If anything wasn't clear or you want to privately chat, Milani, feel free to share my email with them. I'm happy to help in any way I can. And stay healthy, people.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Deia.
You bet. Take care. Bye-bye.